Hello friends! We're making self-defense keychains. Let's go! I got the molds that we're going to be using on Amazon. They came in a pack of 6 with a bunch of different animals and it was like $18, so I will have that linked in the description below. Today we're going to be making the dog, the narwhal, and the cat. For the cat, I'm going to be using Pandora and Circe, and then for the narwhal, I'm going to be using those 3 blues. And for the dog, we're going to use Maleficent. All the glitters that I'm going to be using in today's video are from PDB Creative Studio. I do have a discount code that will be in the description below for $5 off of your first purchase at PDB if you want to get some really good glitter. I'm just adding a little bit of glitter to each little medicine cup that I've got for each keychain. I'm not adding too much glitter, but I may be going up to like the 10 milliliter line on the cup. We're gonna add about 25 milliliters of epoxy to each cup, so we want this to be pretty thick and very glittery. I'm using CC DIY medium viscosity artist resin for these molds, and I'm going to focus on the dog and the cat first. I'm gonna set that narwhal aside and do it separately because I only mixed 60 milliliters of epoxy. So I'm just gonna divide that epoxy between the 2 cups, mix them up really well, and then I'm gonna let my cups sit for about 5 minutes before I actually pour them into the molds. You wanna wait a little bit so the glitter suspends itself in epoxy. After my molds were cured and I demolded them, I realized I probably should have let them sit a little bit longer because I did have a little bit of my glitter sink to the bottom. So if you don't want your glitter to sink to the bottom, let your cup sit for a while. After your cup has sat for a little bit, you're going to pour your epoxy and glitter into the mold. I didn't pour very cleanly for this one, but try to be as clean as possible. You don't want any of that epoxy to seep over the ends because then you'll have to sand it down or cut it off later. So just be careful. Once all of the epoxy and glitter is poured in, I'm going to take my metal stir stick and just spread it out to make sure that the entire mold is covered. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing with the dog mold. Once all the epoxy is in the molds, I'm going to give it a quick spritz with 91% rubbing alcohol to bring all the bubbles to the top, and then I'm going to pop them all with my kitchen lighter in about 20 to 25 minutes. You don't want to spray your alcohol and then immediately go in with your lighter because you'll set everything on fire. So be very careful, wait for all the alcohol to dry and wait for all the bubbles to rise to the top, and then go in with your lighter. Also, I would not recommend using a torch on your silicone molds because it could affect your demolding later. So stick with a kitchen lighter or a small lighter, something not as aggressive as a torch. For the narwhal keychain, I followed the exact same process as I did with the cat and the dog. I mixed the epoxy and then poured it into my mold. I also ended up adding some alcohol ink and I didn't really like how it looked when it cured, so we're going to cover that up later. But here's what we've got. I demolded the dog because I just couldn't wait and I forgot to press record when I did the little blue detailing. But anyway, let's demold all these other ones. Demolding things like this is one of my favorite parts of doing this. It's always so much fun to like turn it over and see all of the sparkle. Like, hello, oh my gosh, I love it. Pandora from PDB is one of the most beautiful glitters I've ever seen, so I was so excited to demold this and turn it over. Oh my gosh, hello, like wowie, wow, 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 wow. Next, I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and just clean up any edges where the epoxy might have cured over the edge of the mold. It's really not anything super crazy. We're just going to kind of clean those up. You could also, if you didn't want to use your X-Acto knife, you could just sand these edges down to make sure they're smooth. I'm going to go in between the little eyes and do the nose and the whiskers, and I'm going to do this on all of my pieces, and then we'll be ready for the next step. I wanted to show you guys a few different ways that you could deal with the backs of your keychains, especially if your glitter sinks to the bottom. So like I said earlier, for this narwhal one, I had added some alcohol ink and I didn't like how it looked. It didn't really blend the way that I had envisioned. So I'm gonna take some like aqua colored paint. This is just acrylic paint from Hobby Lobby. And I'm gonna do 3 thin coats on this to give us a little bit of a base for the additional glitter that we're gonna add later. Jumping back over to the pink keychain, I'm going to take this neon pink acrylic paint marker and I'm going to just paint or color the edges of this keychain to give it a little bit of a neon pink pop. And this is super easy. Using paint markers is probably the easiest way to do it, but if you wanted to use a brush and do it the old-fashioned way, you could absolutely do that as well. Once my aqua paint for my narwhal has dried, I'm going to do the exact same thing with a black acrylic paint marker this time, color the edges of my narwhal. Once all the paint has dried on our edges, I'm going to start prepping my glitter for the epoxy coat that we're going to put on the opposite side. So I'm taking Soul Sister and I'm going to put a little bit in a cup. I'm just kind of spooning it out with this plastic thing, just doing like 2 small little scoops. Pro tip, cleaning up your silicone mats with a lint roller is the best way to do it. Next, I'm taking Exhale, also from PDB, and I'm putting a little bit of that in a cup as well. And then I'm going to mix about 20 milliliters of epoxy and divide it between those 2 cups, mix it up really well, and then I'm going to apply, just using a gloved finger, to that opposite side, the one that was facing us when we had our keychains in the molds. This is a totally optional step. You could just leave this as is and not do this coat. You could also use just plain epoxy without any glitter added. Like you could just dome it off using plain epoxy. I like to add glitter because you can never have too much glitter, right? And I'm taking the epoxy with Exhale onto that aqua side of the narwhal that we painted. I really love how this glitter pops on this aqua base. I might have to do a tumbler or something with this color combination because I think it looks really cool. I'm really glad that I decided to go this route with the design versus the alcohol ink that I had done before. This epoxy and glitter mixture is a lot thinner than what we used for our molds. I didn't put as much glitter to epoxy ratio, so this is a lot easier to spread and it's not going to clump up or have a weird texture once it cures. I took a little bit more of Exhale and some epoxy and mixed those together and decided that I wanted to put it on the dog as well. I think this glitter looks so cool on black. I was not expecting to get this effect, but once I put it on, I was like, oh my gosh, this is good. So if you want to try Exhale on black, I recommend it. I let these cure for a full 24 hours and then I was ready to move on to our finishing steps. Here is what they look like after they've cured. This narwhal one is definitely my favorite. That one is pretty much done. There aren't any real finishing touches we need to add before we add our keychain hardware, but the cat and the dog did have a little bit of epoxy seep through to the backside when we were doing our top layer. So I'm going to fix that by adding some sea glass glitter from PDB into my epoxy and then just doing a very thin coat on that side just to shine everything up again and make it look like there was never a mistake in the first place. The amount of glitter we added to the epoxy is not enough that it would like overpower the design. It's just going to make things a little extra shiny and fix any of those flaws. So you're still going to be able to see that beautiful Maleficent holographic glitter on the black dog, and you'll still be able to see Pandora on the cat. And like I said, this is a super thin layer, so I'm just taking a gloved finger and taking like a tiny little finger dip into the epoxy and just spreading it over the surface of those keychains, being really careful not to get it into any of the crevices because we don't want it to seep through to the other side, and then we would just be going back and forth doing this over and over and over again. Okay, now that everything is cured, it's time to add our keychain hardware. I thought it would be really cute to add some bubblegum beads to the keychains. I've been obsessed with them recently and I just want to add them to everything. So I've got this white elastic string and a needle with a threader. So I'm going to thread my needle with that string. I've got about probably 2 feet of string here, and I'm threading both ends of that string through the eye of the needle. So we're going to have a loop on one side and then the 2 ends on the other. I'm putting my needle through the bottom keychain hole of this keychain. And I want the needle side to be on the side that has the 2 ends sticking out, not the loop, because we're going to bring our needle back around through that loop to attach the string to the keychain. Next, we're going to attach our beads. I'm going to use 3 bubblegum beads per keychain, but you could use 1, 2, 6, whatever makes you happy. I buy my bubblegum beads from the Bumblebead company on Etsy and also at Hobby Lobby when they are on sale. Once you've got all of your beads on your string, we're going to add the Keychain Hardware, the actual gold keychain. I'm going to use the lobster claw part of the keychain because it doesn't have an open hole for the string to pull through. I did try to put it initially when I first did this through this part of the keychain, but it has, I don't know if you can see, a tiny little slit, and the string kept slipping through that. So I didn't want that, so I'm using this lobster claw clasp because it has a solid ring. So once you've got that on your string, you're going to loop your needle around the outside of that ring and down through your first bead to attach the keychain to your bead. So I'm gonna go around the lobster claw and then down through the first bead. And you want to pull this as tight as you possibly can without ripping your string to make sure that there isn't any slack or give in that string for your knot. So then you're going to wrap your string down around the bottom of that first bead and then just tie a knot. I like to use my finger as a little bit of an anchor to give me some spacing. And then once that knot is tied, pull it tight again, and then you can get rid of your needle, and we're going to tie 2 more knots to secure this in place. The first knot is a very simple, just over and under 1 loop knot. We'll pull that tight, and then the second knot will be a double over and under loop. So you'll do your over and under and then do another over and under before you tighten it, and then you'll tighten them both at the same time to make sure everything is stuck and not going anywhere. Pull your knot again as tight as you can to make sure there isn't any slack and that those knots are as tight as possible to keep this all secured. And then we'll cut off the excess string that we have. We'll leave about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch of that string left just so it doesn't fray or anything. And then I'll add the rest of the keychain hardware, add our bubblegum beads to our cat keychain, and I will be right back with the finished result. Okay, I'm back. That was fast, huh? Here are all the keychains all completed. These were so much fun to do. I really like how they turned out. I loved trying a little bit of a different technique on each keychain. It makes them all really unique, and it makes making each one even more fun because you can try something new every single time. I will definitely be making a lot more of these, and I probably will try a new technique every single time. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you are not already. We upload new videos every Tuesday and Saturday. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Bye!